So that's the power of storytelling too, and I will tell you before turning it over to my friend Bryan Monroe in the panel, and he'll talk to you more about this, that the Peterson brothers, and we've got Greg here, the guy who was working out, 35 million views. 35 million views. That's impact. Bryan Monroe, come on out. So Bryan is a dear friend and a former colleague. Bryan ran CNN Digital Politics, yep. And he happens to be a foodie, right?
I guess so.
What kind of food?
Oh, I like baking,
kind.
The good stuff, yeah.
You bake?
I do a little baking.
What do you bake?
Oh, you'll have to see.
Okay, we'll let it, I'll turn it up. It's all yours.
Thank you, Frank. Well, we're going to bring out an amazing panel today. A lot of young farmers, started as students, now working daily in the farm industry, and their excitement. But first, Frank talked about my background, and I think I started. It's my backyard. Oh, go backwards. It's my dad. He's a retired two-star general, but ran a farm in Laurinburg, North Carolina. Who knows where Laurinburg is? Scotland County, down near Fayetteville. And they did tobacco and cotton and soybean, watermelon, but it became part of our family to work the earth. Now, I haven't been on a farm in years, but I try to have my own little backyard pallet farm, a little garden where we put some tomatoes, and then, yeah, I bake. But trying to teach my kids about where food comes from and starting young. And that's why this panel is so exciting, and you're gonna have a lot of fun because these are young farmers. Let me bring out first, you saw him earlier, Greg Peterson of Peterson Brothers Farms. Come on up, Greg. Thanks, right there. And next we have Emily Best. Emily is of New Morning Farm, but also the Organic Queen. Come on out, Emily. Melanie Heckt from University of Minnesota, very much involved in minorities in agriculture. Come on out. And finally, Simon Itle from Penn State University. He's a fourth generation dairy farmer. Come on out, guys. I'm gonna start with you, dude.
All right.
We have 45, how many million clicks you have on there?
35 million total views on all of our videos.
My goodness. Now, I understand your dad's trying to kind of get you back onto the farm instead of doing all these video stuff. How did you manage to start this?
Well, we got started in 2012, and I remember telling my dad, as we were working on the farm, we were filming this video, and we'd film it after we were done working or in the downtime. And we made the video in order to show our friends in high school and in college that farming was cooler than they thought it was. That was our goal. And when we made the video, we thought that would be our primary audience. And we thought, what better way to connect to our friends than to use a popular hit song that they all know to, that was our bridge to those people. And after we made the video, we posted it. We thought maybe we were going to get a couple thousand views. I think the highest number we talked about was 50,000, and we got 5 million in the first week.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
And tell me the truth. You make more money farming or on YouTube?
YouTube.
There we go. Today, by the way, you may not know, today is the 10th anniversary of the very first video on YouTube. April 23rd, 2005, it was a video of San Diego Zoo, elephants in the San Diego Zoo, and put up by a friend of the guy who founded YouTube. Emily, you are Ms. Organic.
I guess so.
Grew up in Pennsylvania.
Yep.
You come down here every weekend to run the stand at the DuPont Circle Farmers Market. How do you manage all that?
Not a lot of sleep, and not a lot of other activities. As I mentioned before, the growing season, we actually come back to market next May. So the DuPont Circle Market is year-round, but we take a little bit of time off in the spring. So starting next weekend, I will be working, at the farm 5 or 6 days a week, and then come down on Sundays for the market. And I make sure in the off season to take a lot of time off and rest and relax because you have to have that balance somewhere. So the growing season is full steam ahead, and then the off season is take some time.
Good. And you were in the Peace Corps too?
Yep. Yeah, for 1 year, yes.
What did you learn about getting young people involved in farming in that enterprise?
Well, What I learned there was that I was in the northern part of Senegal, which is a really harsh climate, very dry, very hot. And what I learned there is that the challenges are very similar to here in terms of young people. People don't see farming as a good career path for themselves. It's something that you do only if you don't have any other option. And I think that we really need to start talking about how to value farmers more and value their work more, make sure that farmers are getting paid, and that, as a community of academics and policymakers, that farmers are a part of the conversation and seen as, respected people who know what they're talking about.
Wow. Melanie, you're a student at University of Minnesota, and you're also very involved with, let me make sure I get this right, minorities in agricultural, natural resources, and related sciences, Manners.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
So Manners is a national organization. There's tons of chapters in many different colleges across the country. One of the main goals of Manners is to include and promote minorities in agricultural sciences and related fields. So I'm actually a nutrition major and public health minor, hoping to also get into food systems. And one of the really cool things that Manners has allowed me to do, and the college that I'm at the University of Minnesota, is see how nutrition and agriculture and environmental studies, how it all ties together. With Manners, one of the things that we're working on for next year, and we're currently working on, is building connections with some at-risk youth who work in a bakery in North Minneapolis. We are currently just got a grant recently to bring them to campus, and we're going to try to introduce them to some of the agriculture and natural resource sciences, and just support them in their goals too, because we also realize that every aspect, every career, science, whatever, it all still plays a role.
Now, you've worked within both the organization as young students, particularly as we've seen jobs at farms and farm-related industries shrink dramatically, partly because of the efficiency of farming, but because there are fewer opportunities in some areas, a lot more in others. How do you encourage your friends to get into farming? Or do you?
That is my hope to do. As I get more into food systems, I'm hoping to start doing that this coming year. And just education, I guess, just knowing where your food comes from, and just being a conscious consumer.
Correct. Simon, the dairy dude, 4th generation. Tell me about your family's business.
Well, my dairy farm was started 1933, in the midst of the Great Depression, by my great-grandfather. And currently my father and his siblings, he has 7 siblings, and they all have a stake in the business. And really what we have is we have a dairy farm with about 200 milking, and we also have our own dairy processing plant right on about a mile up the road from our facility. And we process and produce a high quality product, and we also use suppliers from 3 other dairy farms in the area. And really, we have a home delivery and a wholesale service, so we within a 60-mile radius. So we really tie into the local high quality dairy products that we try to deliver to consumers that really want that in their life. It's also another big initiative we've been taking on is agritourism. We have a lot of events on our farm all throughout the year to engage consumers in the conversation about where their food comes from, and to really answer those questions that they have other sources also.
You went to Penn State. Penn State, known for a party school. Folks have fun up there. I've been up to State College many times. You're up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, out in the farm, while everyone else is probably just getting in. How do you hang with your friends and other students whose priorities are different? How do you get them to understand what you do?
Well, it comes down to, you take such a passion in waking up in the morning and completing that hard day of work. At the end of the day, sometimes, you take a glass of milk and you're like, wow, that's really refreshing. That's more refreshing than, anything else, because, you worked hard, worked your butt off to get that. It comes down to, you just mentioned when a student is taking a drink or eating something, you just say, hey, I've been up this early, and they just look at you, and it's like, well, I don't even go to bed before then. But it's definitely rewarding to see the effects of waking up and putting a hard day's work in, and be able to relate to other students and tell them how much work that actually took.
That's good. I mean, Greg, we were talking earlier about the business of farming, and that you're on the road every once in a while talking about your video, but most of the time you're out working the farm. And in fact, if you weren't here right now, you'd be back in Kansas planting corn. How do you get your friends and obviously where you grew up is very much a farming community, but at Kansas State, go Wildcats. How do they understand the work and the technology and how much goes into farming?
I mean, even in Kansas, even in rural Kansas, you see a lot of different people who don't even understand what's happening all around them. I mean, growing up, I was surrounded by family farms just like mine, and that was like the way it was. But even in high school, when we were deciding to make that first video, we realized the disconnect. And that disconnect is only getting worse because there's less and less people involved in farming. And so, yeah, it can be hard because we represent such a small portion of the population. But I think when, everyone eats food and everyone has, a job and there's all these things that you can relate to. And that's really what we tried to show in our videos is we're just a family just like you. We're producing food that you eat, and you just try to connect to some of those things.
Emily, you're a big champion of organic food, and you come down here to the farmers market. You do that a lot in Pennsylvania. Your friends who don't really get this organic thing, don't understand GMOs. Why should I care? Why should they care? How do you make them care?
Well, like Greg says, I mean, everybody eats. And since becoming a farmer, I've actually tried to engage more with farmers of all types, like farmers like Greg, growing commodity crops on a larger scale than what we're doing. And for me, it's become even more complicated. Like the more that I learn about farming, the more I see that it's so broad and encompasses so many ideas, and every farm is different. And I think that that's something that farmers need to do a better job at communicating to people, to tell them, like, it's not so cut and dry. It's not just, everything organic is perfect, because that's not true. And it's not that anything that's not organic isn't good, because that also isn't true. And I think, we just have to keep speaking up and use social media. Like on Twitter, for example, I'm really active on Twitter, and there's a lot of farmers on there who share stories of what they do, and people you might think, oh, like they're not doing something that I agree with. Well, learn more about it, find out why they're doing it the way that they're doing it. And I think that's a good way that we can start moving things forward.
You talked about social media, opened up the whole panel. How important is social media in what you do and how you spread the word? We were talking earlier, now a lot of the combines on most farms in Kansas and elsewhere are automated, or fairly automated. There's still someone in the cab that does the turns and makes sure they get going. But instead of having a driver in the combine, you're doing what in there?
I mean, when you're driving a combine or tractor and it's driving itself, you got to make sure everything's working. But I'll pull out my phone and be tweeting, or I'll be, when I was in college, I did homework in the tractor of a cab once. So, you can be productive or you can be not as productive.
Makes it worthwhile. Talk about social media.
I'm not sure if anybody's familiar with the Big Ben calf. It actually comes from my farm. It had a number 7 on it. It's a big famous thing in Pennsylvania. Because Ben Roethlisberger, the Pittsburgh Steelers, so we called him Big Ben. It really took off. It was such a interesting thing that consumers, took a hold of that, and that helps. It's a great way to reach out to consumers, share your story, keep consumers interested in interacting with the family business and also agriculture as a whole.
What's your Twitter handle?
I don't have one.
Oh, okay. Melanie, are you on social media?
I don't have a Twitter. I'm on Facebook and Instagram.
Okay.
So.
Very
Well,
good.
Instagram, actually, I've found a lot of other farms on Instagram, and I think Instagram is a really great way to engage with customers and other farmers. Like, I'll post a picture of something going wrong on the farm and say, does anyone have any idea what might be causing this? And people will chime in, and it works, both ways, that we can connect with farmers, with consumers, and just share more of what we're doing.
Yeah, I've had this aphid problem with my tomatoes. And we'll talk. We've got a couple of minutes. I want to take some questions from the audience. But as we do that, I'll turn back to Greg and social media and really YouTube, how that has exploded for you, and to get your message out and your family's message out about farming. How many videos have you done? About 16 of them?
We've done 9 parody music videos. Those are obviously our most successful ones, but we've done about 70 total videos on YouTube that are educational and other things as well.
And you got your dad involved?
Yeah, he's had a few lines in there. We have to push some of our other members of the family a little bit in front of the camera. But.
Wow. All right, let's see. We have questions out here. Over here in the front.
Hello. Oops, sorry. Emily, you were talking about how you can get more farmers, both across organic and conventional, to talk more. And I think that's super important. But how would you advise consumers such as us, or people that are interested in starting farming, new and beginning farmers, to get engaged in that conversation as well?
Well, there's an organization online called Ag Chat, and so every Tuesday evening from 8 until 10, using the hashtag AgChat, there will be a series of questions, and I've started getting more into this in the winter, and I probably won't be able to do it much during the growing season, but there's all sorts of topics, and all sorts of farmers and people involved in ag get involved in that conversation. And so that's a good way to find sort of like the Twitter farming community, and then you can just go from there and find more folks. And everybody that I've talked to is happy to engage with me as an organic grower. You just have to, be open-minded when you're asking the questions and not try and like denigrate what they're doing just because you think you have your opinion, but just ask them openly, and you'll find many people want to share.
Great. Another one right here.
Hi there, Francisco Alvarez, GW Roosevelt. I have a relative of a good friend who left the family in Kentucky to start his own farm in Maryland. He did this 3-4 years ago. It's been a bit of a struggle for him to get started up. I'm just wondering, as someone who perhaps did not come from a farming background, and maybe not generations of farmers, but wants to start something up themselves, do you see any policy solutions or challenges in getting off the ground like that? Thank you.
Well, first of all, people should check out the National Young Farmers Coalition. They do amazing work here in DC advocating for those kinds of policies. And then there's chapters in many different states. And there's actually a chapter that's just starting up now in Maryland, so your friend should connect with them. There's a lot of different policies that I think we can enact. One of them is student loan forgiveness when people are involved in farming for 10 years. I think also we need to have a serious conversation about land access in this country and how young people who don't have a lot of access or assets can get onto expensive farmland.
While we're talking about sort of the barriers to entry in the business, how lucrative is farming for a young person? If you're not on YouTube.
I think it really
Like the for real, for real.
depends. It depends what sort of operation you're on, where you started from, like what sort of debt you're taking on. For me, at New Morning Farm, the apprentices are all on a salary, and it's not that high, but it's comfortable enough. But that's just for me, and I know if you're starting your own farm, you're going to struggle. But it's like many other types of small businesses. When you start out, like you have a period of time before you start making money.
Simon, you've seen, your family go through 4 generations has it gotten easier or harder?
Well, the common phrase they always say is the first generation builds it up, second generation maintains it, and the third generation tears it down. So, it's definitely, that might be a little negative, but it's definitely positive to see, our family, really hammer, keep it going, keep passionate about it. And it's definitely a challenge out there in the marketplace, as well as other things. But the biggest thing, in agriculture is, regulations. The great Ronald Reagan once said, if something moves, the government taxes it. If something continues to move, they regulate it. But if it stops moving, they subsidize it. The government has been doing that to agriculture for the longest time. It has had all 3 done to it. And it's definitely a challenge to see overburden some regulations, which doesn't mean that regulations don't have a common sense approach that need to be applied to agriculture.
We got a few more minutes before we wrap up. I want to open this to everybody. Particularly as a young person, so much of what you're about is bringing yourself to the job, to the activity, to the enterprise, your joys, your music, your laughter, who you are as a person. How are each of you able to do that? Or do you feel like it's being clamped down? Melanie, we'll start with you.
Like how I bring...
Yeah, you.
I guess I really have a passion for public health. I just started my minor this year and I'm taking classes and they're so interesting. So I guess just having that passion for it and being able to see how everything connects to each other and knowing that everyone can be involved in solving these issues makes me really passionate about it and want to continue.
Emily, what do you do besides farming and organic?
Well, I have a couple of cats that I hang out with, and I live with my boyfriend and his kids, so there's that side of things. But I think coming to market on the weekends really helps me be more engaged with people in a way that the farm job, we're so isolated where we are, and I work a solitary part of the job, and so coming to DC and being able to say, like, look at all these beautiful vegetables, like, you guys need to buy them. Like, if you come to the market, you will literally see me shouting about how amazing our produce is. So that is, part of me that I love to be able to share. So that's why I do market.
So you're able to bring your passions to work.
Yeah, exactly.
Simon, if you weren't doing dairy farming and your family, you went to your mom or dad and said, I want to be a commodities trader or something, where's your joy and heart?
Excuse me. Well, growing up, I always thought I'd be a big professional league baseball player because I always played baseball throughout high school and everything. So, but that, that got the real life period, and I, really found my passion in agriculture. And, I'm a really, being a conservationist almost comes along with being part of agriculture. I enjoy being in the outdoors. I love being in the north central of Pennsylvania, out in the vast woodlands of the state parks and things like that. And I just really enjoy, being outside. But when it comes down to it, I feel a great passion to deliver something to consumers or engage with them. That's at first you think you're scared, oh, I'm gonna screw up or I'm gonna get made fun of or something like that. But at the end of the day, when you pass along that knowledge, that's the passion that keeps all the farmers going. It's definitely heartwarming.
And Greg, you are the farmer/video star. Are you doing exactly what you were put on this earth to do?
I definitely feel more like that than I did 5 years ago. If you'd have told me 5 years ago that this is where we would be, it's unbelievable. Our videos have taken us to not only all over the U.S., but Australia, Canada, Germany, South Africa in August. And it's like, we are so privileged to have been given this opportunity to be a face and a voice for farmers all over this country. And we get testimonials and messages from families all over the country saying, thank you so much for showing people what we as farmers do. Because so many times farmers are misunderstood. And that's kind of our goal with the videos, is to help people understand farmers. But we want to do it in a fun and entertaining way. And we're just really privileged for that. That's kind of what brings me to the farm, brings me to our videos, is just a passion for farming and for the farming community. And then the videos, it's a passion for providing the truth about farmers. Great.
Well, we can sit here and keep talking all day, but this has been a really fascinating conversation. Please join me in thanking our panel here. Thanks, guys.
Thank you all very much. That's great. So you're gonna run the farm? You're gonna kick your dad out?
That's a plan.
You gonna farm?
Maybe.
All right. When can we see you this Sunday?
Next Sunday. Next Sunday. Still sleeping in on Sunday.
Now, if anybody comes up to you and says, "Hey, I was at that Planet Forward thing," can you give them a little discount?
Yes, well, I have to say the first market ends May. We don't have as much stuff, so if you come in June, we've got strawberries then.
All right, so you give them one extra strawberry?
Yeah, I can hook you guys up.
And when's the next video coming out?
We are doing one in May. It is going to focus on animal welfare, and if you keep it hush-hush, I guess it's online, but we're going to do a parody of Taking Care of Business called Taking Care of Livestock. That's our next one.
There we go.
Taking care, I get it. All right, that's good. Should we go into farming?
Yeah, sure.
All right.
Go for it.
Right,
Bryan,
as always.
it's great. Thank you. Thanks to Bryan and everybody.